traffic controller and a trainee.
This is becoming a major problem worldwide that I tried to warn people about in the year 2017 that now is catching up with them to the degree that we're having unsafe services regarding our aviation. Please watch.
Sent an email to customers yesterday saying flights to and from Newark are, quote, absolutely safe. Also this morning, it appears Newark isn't the only airport suffering from significant issues. More than 100 flights were delayed at the Hartsfield Jackson Atlanta International Airport yesterday. That follows 2 ground stops on Sunday due to the runway equipment issues and an air traffic control outage. And the airport in Austin, Texas saw more than 100 delays on Sunday due to a shortage of air traffic controllers. And Joe, I don't think this is the last we've heard of it. Something has to change.
Right. You know, something does have to change, and we've all experienced, certainly post-COVID, difficulties flying, especially in the summer months, with pilots being pushed out for retirement and air traffic controllers also, many going to retirement. The same thing with flight attendants and other people up and down sort of the food chain for the airline industry. We knew this was going to be a problem and talked about it post-COVID, but it has gotten so bad now. Willie, I really, they're going to have to take some extreme measures. I know the Secretary of Transportation's meeting the head of the airlines on Wednesday. I know they're going to be trying to keep as many flights up in the air as possible. I don't think they can do that. I don't think they can do half measures right now. We've had 3 outages at Newark. 3 outages. The first outage was blamed on a rusted copper coil. Yeah. And now we've had a second and a third. They're not talking about rusted copper coils anymore or whatever they were talking about, because they've got a system that is melting down right now. And when you only have the New York Post reporting 1 air traffic controller and 1 trainee guiding in 160 to 180 planes from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. in one of the nation's busiest airports last night, it's unacceptable. They're going to have to make very dramatic decisions, and they're going to have to be a ton of planes grounded until they get their arms around this. And it may be several months before that happens, but this is a tragedy that's waiting to happen. And when you have the head of United saying flights to and from Newark are completely safe, reminds me an awful lot about what the government said about walking around 9/11 after 9/11 for those first responders, saying, no, don't worry, the air is completely safe. Well, it wasn't, and the air is not completely safe now, not only over Newark, but over a lot of other cities.
Yeah, I mean, I was one of the many people who received that email yesterday from the CEO of United Airlines, and he went on to explain not only is it safe to go into Newark, but when there are staffing shortages to the FAA, when they have their problems, they require the airlines to have fewer flights to manage that. So therefore, you get canceled flights, you get backups, you get all the things that we're seeing at these airports. I'm not sure an email from the CEO, though well-intentioned, is going to put people's mind to ease when they hear just how antiquated the system is. And I guess if you're looking for a silver lining in all this, Jim Bandahai, it's that sometimes it takes a moment of crisis to actually get something changed. We've had Steve Ratner, a pilot, on this show many times over the last several weeks talking about a plan that went in place in the year 2000, 25 years ago, to overhaul and modernize our air traffic control system to make it safer, to bring it into this century.
Promulgated by Y2K.
And because only pieces of that have been put in, we have not really overhauled the system in the way we should, and that's all been thrown into public view here in the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's a real danger, I think, for Trump, for politicians. I mean, this is the type of crap that the American public doesn't tolerate. This is where the presidency, this is where the government is like being a mayor. You operate the airline system. You just do. The FAA governs all of this, and it's an interconnected, complicated system. And like the CEO can send you an email and say, hey, all is fine. You couldn't pay me to go through Newark. Even if you could convince me that it's safe, like everyone knows you're going to probably have a canceled flight or a delayed flight, and the fact that it's now spreading to other places has to rise to the top of the government's agenda. We hear from the transportation secretary, but you're about to head into Memorial Day. You're about to head into the summer. I was just trying to fly out of Bangor, Maine. Turns out that they've had to cancel a bunch of flights because they haven't done runway work that should have been scheduled years ago to be done on time. And if this is happening at a bunch of different airports and screws up travel, it has implications for people's lives, has implications for the U.S. economy.
And Jonathan Lemire, we've had summers where travel is difficult over the past 3-4 years post COVID. It certainly got a lot better over the last 2 years, and everybody's known this system's antiquated. Everybody's known that you have floppy disks, that they're still using floppy disk. And I guarantee you there are about half of our audience that don't even know what a floppy disk is. It's something that you stuck into an old computer back in the 1980s. And as Ratner said, they're not electronic. They're handing notes often from one air traffic controller to another. But we had the greatest safety run from 2009 until January of this year. And it's just like Congress was asleep at the switch, successive presidents asleep at the switch, Treasury secretaries asleep. They can't be anywhere. They are on notice. The White House is on notice. The Secretary of Transportation is on notice. Congress is on notice. This system is broken, and if there's an accident, it is on you as a lawmaker. It is on you as a leader for not doing what's necessary right now in this moment of emergency to make things safer and build redundancy so we don't keep hearing about these horrific stories where air traffic controllers go dark for 90 seconds or 2 minutes with hundreds of planes up in the sky around their airport.
Yeah, first to echo Jim Vandehey's spot-on analogy, this is a moment where the president is like a big city mayor. There's a problem. You're tasked with fixing it, and if you don't, you will be held responsible. We saw some of the travel chaos during the Biden administration early on, where he and the transportation secretary at the time, Buttigieg, got a lot of heat because of airport delays. And they did. They were aggressive. They addressed it. Now, obviously, big picture solutions weren't presented, but things did get a little bit better the last couple of years. And we're now at that moment for the Trump administration. We've heard the president a couple times in recent days say, indeed, that the system is antiquated. We need to fix this. It's going to be a priority. He didn't offer any specifics, but said they'd be looking to purchase new systems. The question is, when does that happen? How long does it take to put in place? And what's going to happen in the interim? Because, as just noted, this meltdown is coming just as summer travel season is starting to pick up. And if we have weeks worth of images from airports across the country, beyond Newark, a flight of that red board saying flights postponed or delayed and canceled, and lines of passengers at terminals, that's going to be a real world problem for this president and Congress. Mika, they're saying right now they're going to act. They're saying they're going to find the money to do this. Well, until they actually do, they're going to be held responsible.
Coming up, a look at some of the other stories making headlines this morning.
What they didn't put into the equation, it's similar towards how China over there started making all the airbags and putting plastic in the centerpieces, basically in the console of your steering wheel, that was to be used effectively whenever the airbag discharged in case you was involved in an accident. They didn't put into the equation that plastic, after a certain amount of years, going through extreme heat, extreme cold, back and forth, it changes its composition to the point that it no longer reacts the same way whenever it does explode in the center of the steering wheel. Instead of it opening up the way it was supposed to, it starts being real brittle, and it starts throwing pieces off into people's eyes and lacerations and cutting their faces up and stuff like that. So they basically had to have a major recall on a great deal of these airbags because some engineer didn't sit down and figure out that, hey, plastic, after it goes through a certain amount of time, going through these extremes, this is how it's going to respond and react. Okay? Same thing pertaining to global warming. It's not just the equipment regarding the digital equipment pertaining to the computers that has become obsolete, old, but it's also the equipment on the airplane itself that's having to go through these extreme conditions that ordinarily 10 years ago we wasn't seeing. And it can be extreme wind, tolerances of wind towards pushing down on the plane or pushing up on the plane that puts that much more pressure on the wings, or it can be extreme heat or extreme cold that your architects or your engineers has failed to recognize these indifferences of the atmosphere today being different than what it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. In addition to, you now have all these different people that's come onto the playing field towards being able to fly, and the increase of flying has probably increased 1,000-fold. Let's watch some of this real quick.
This was his first stop when he became president in 2017. It's not surprising that it's his second stop in this second term. It's a place where he, I think, feels a kind of kinship with the Saudi royalty, has certainly come to the aid of Mohammed bin Salman when he was attacked after playing a role in the killing of my colleague Jamal Khashoggi during Trump's first term. This trip, we're all told, will be about business. The idea that the Saudis, who are really struggling with falling oil prices, will be able to get to $1 trillion level of investment as opposed to the $600 billion they promised strikes me as unrealistic. I would also note that Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates, the other destinations on this trip, have become increasingly important strategically for the United States. These are the places now where meetings take place that are intended to resolve conflicts. In the Ukraine war, Russia and Ukraine sent their representatives to Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, then to Riyadh for key talks. Qatar has hosted almost all the key negotiations to free the Israeli hostages in Gaza and have a resolution of the war there. The UAE was said to be helpful to the United States as it tried to de-escalate tensions between Pakistan and India. So these are not just economic friends, wealthy and able to invest in the U.S., they're strategic partners. And that, to me, that's a big difference from what we saw 8 years ago during the last trip. That time, Saudis dreamed of having influence. Today, they really do have it, thanks to their role as a mediator.
No, thanks to the role of various politicians that allowed for these people to become this powerful and become this strong by giving them the oil. That's the bottom line. And now they're buttering up to the American any and every way that they can, and basically trying to duplicate everything that we do over here. They're trying to duplicate, that way they look presentable or acceptable in the eyes of the public pertaining to PR strategy.
In the Middle East. And again, you have a trip here, as many people have noted, where an American president's going to the Middle East and not stopping in Israel. What do you read into that? So I think
I read into it an act of betrayal. That's what I read into it, because they know that these are the people that masterminded 9/11. They know that they cut up that journalist and killed him the way that they did. And yet now we still have president or presidents that wants to go over there and buddy up with them. To me, it's an act of betrayal.
Israeli hostage Idan Alexander. I think Trump is similarly uneasy, unhappy about the pressure he's getting from Israel to consider a military strike on Iran. Trump would rather go for the big deal to cap Iran's nuclear program, even though it doesn't look very different from what he scuttled in 2018 in the so-called JCPOA. But it's when Trump says America first, he means it. And he means it even in the case of our historically closest ally in the region, Israel. Israel's interests, while powerful, do not, in Trump's mind, supersede those of the United States. An extraordinary example published by the New York Times last night is one of the best stories I've seen in weeks. Details Trump's frustration with the campaign against the Iranian-backed Houthis, that his decision after 30 days just said, that's it, let's declare victory. He was given a plan for 8 months of military campaign. He decided this isn't going anywhere, it's not worth the money, and did it without talking to the Israelis, who were directly threatened by the Houthis. That's a very different command and control environment than I've ever seen. I've been covering the Middle East for 40 years. This really surprised me.
John, let's talk a little bit about the pageantry we're watching on the other side of our screen, this long receiving line of, frankly, rich guys coming to get their 30 seconds.
That's what it is.
President Trump.
Birds of a feather flock together.
Crown Prince greeted President Trump at the airport a short time ago, an honor he did not offer President Biden in 2022 when he arrived. The president's limousine, the Beast, was escorted to the royal court by Arabian horses. The Saudis know how to put on a show. They know how to welcome President Trump. Remember in that visit in 2017 when they projected his face onto the side of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel there.
Yeah, the Saudis created a template that was Trump's first trip was May 2017.
Now watch this. Watch the camera people. They're duplicating our camera people over here towards the free shots there. Everything that we have been a part of for the past 40, 50 years, they are now trying to duplicate in every aspect imaginable. From the way that we honor our military, how we salute our military, to giving women rights of being able to vote and having positions here in America. Now they're starting to conform to that. And I'm telling you right now, this is basically the devil's advocate in doing these things that would be considered an act of treason if we was dealing with the same bunch of people back in the late early 1900s. And how come people don't see that or understand that? It's simply because there has been a great mistake made, and a mistake that has been made back in the Nixon and the Carter era and the Ford era, is that we started giving stuff away or allowing for them to become strong, kind of like Afghanistan. Whenever you leave how many billions of dollars worth of equipment over there in Afghanistan, well, it's just a matter of time before Afghanistan, they're going to step out onto the world stage, and they're going to want to be recognized, kind of like Kim Jong-un over in North Korea. He wants to be recognized on the national camera. Why? Because he's become that powerful. These people are corrupt. These people basically want to not only dominate the world, but these people want to destroy Christianity, period, from the planet. And their Sharia law over there is back with the other type of religious formations over there, pertaining to the old Persian Empire, that Christ talked about, pertaining to that whenever you shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, to know that we are at the end. This is all part of biblical Bible prophecy coming true, that Christ tried to warn us and give us advisories about, that have been either ignored or wasn't understood. That even I think Donald Trump understands part of it, pertaining to the Accords, Abraham Accords. This is a good thing that guy got released.
The position is being challenged over a procedural complaint related to voting. But the move comes after Hogg vowed to spend $20 million to oust some Democratic House members in safe blue districts. In a statement last night, he wrote in part, "It's impossible to ignore the broader context of my work to reform the party, which loomed large over this vote." He added, "The DNC has pledged to remove me, and this vote has provided an avenue to fast track that effort." We'll follow that. And U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. posted photos of himself swimming in water known to be contaminated with high levels of bacteria. He was joined by family members, including his grandchildren. Swimming is prohibited in Rock Creek, which flows through parts of Washington. The reason is because of widespread fecal contamination and sewer runoff into Rock Creek, where they swam.
Brought the grain.
Kind of like the Tennessee River. The Tennessee River is supposed to be one of the most filthiest, dirtiest waterways because of the very same thing that she just got through mentioning pertaining to sewer and stuff being run off into the river. And plus all the runoff coming from the hills pertaining to the farmers with all the fertilizer and the poisons and Roundup and Truffland and everything else going into the water. I mean, it's contaminants. It's contaminants. But some people want to defy science.
General Stanley McChrystal joins us next on Morning Joe.
Some people want to defy science, and that's another one of the reasons why that we're in the shape that we're in, because it was science that was putting out warnings back in the 50s and the 60s pertaining to what we was going to do to Mother Earth if we continued on the same path that we was on. And guess what? We continued on the same path. And guess what? Now we're seeing the consequences. Not just with aviation, not just with airlines, but with everything. I mean, they was talking about a runway that needed repairing. Okay, that was due to be repaired like years ago, that had never got to it. Well, the thing about it is, as you're dealing with a planet that's basically cracking and crumbling below our feet, you're going to have to pay more attention to these crucial runways, because as not only the road structure or infrastructure is being damaged because of what we're doing to the planet, but also are these runways. Whenever I made mention about electrical disturbances up in Kentucky, I was absolutely appalled by a group of people that was trying to make me out to be a homegrown terrorist based upon that in which what had occurred in Martin, Tennessee in 2005. This was in 2007 while I was up in Kentucky. And they was basically trying to implement me towards me being a very, very dangerous, harmful monster, to the degree that I was going to create electrical disturbances by creating them. And the way that they thought that I was going to create them was that I had intentions of blowing up the Kentucky Dam. They didn't just do that to me once. They'd done that to me twice, in addition to the problems that I've had out of that area pertaining to LBL, Land Between the Lakes. The whole time while I was trying to help these people, they was trying to put a stamp on me that I was trying to hurt them, that I was trying to bring harm to them, towards wanting to put me in a category of being either a homegrown terrorist or having the implications of being a homegrown terrorist that began right here in Martin, Tennessee, in Weakley County in 2005. I've never seen a group of people that was basically biting the very hand that was trying to feed them in wanting to take people such as myself that's trying to help them and turn it around to the degree of saying that we was trying to hurt them. Just like Al Gore. Al Gore ain't trying to hurt the planet. Al Gore's trying to save the planet. I've never seen society so upside down like it is right now, just like us over there, fiddle farting around over there with the Saudis, knowing good and well that they was the ones that masterminded 9/11. I don't know what their theory is in behind all this. I just know that there has been a big, big flub up whenever it comes to, even Donald Trump at one time made mention that what we should do is just go over there and take their freaking oil from them? Of course, you know as well as I do, if that we was to attempt to try to do that, that would initiate World War III over there. But the fact of the matter is we've had various politicians for the past 30, 40, 50 years that has made some harsh mistakes that now today we as an American society are having to deal with on levels unimaginable. Just like leaving billions of dollars worth of equipment over in Afghanistan. Do you not think that that's going to come back and bite us one day in the butt? Sure it will. Absolutely it will.
I really do think it's a perfect play, dramaturgically, but where it hit me emotionally and where it spoke to, you know, my experience of growing up as a Iranian American in Ohio, playing a lot of parts that
basically giving the Panama Canal away. I mean, I've never seen so much contradictory entanglement whenever it comes to the safety and the well-being of the American people, especially the Christian American people, that has been done or hadn't been done that should have got done for the past 30, 40, 50 years.
From the Qatari government to be used.
Let's back this up. Now, the Qatari government, the way I understand it, took a separation from the Saudi government.
Yes, for the hour. We also have our friend Pulitzer Prize winner.
But now, if you don't watch, people that don't know no better and people that don't do a fact check, they'll think, well, this airplane's coming from the Saudis. No, it's not coming from the Saudis. It's coming from another government over in that same area.
Controversy continues to grow around his decision to accept a luxury Boeing jumbo jet from the ruling family of Qatar. NBC News Chief White House correspondent Peter Alexander is in Riyadh with more.
This morning for President Trump, a royal welcome. Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman greeting the president on the first stop in his 4-day Middle East tour. Air Force One earlier receiving a Saudi fighter jet escort. The two leaders gathering ahead of an investment conference. All three countries on the president's itinerary, places where the Trump organization, headed up by the president's adult sons, are developing major real estate projects.
Trump Tower, Jeddah. Coming soon.
The visit comes as President Trump is defending his decision to accept this luxury jumbo jet from the Qatari government to be used as the new Air Force One amid years-long delays for a replacement jet from Boeing.
I could be a stupid person to say, oh, no, we don't want a free plane. We give free things out. We'll take one, too.
Inside, lavish leather seats, glimmering floors and ceilings. The president says the jet will be transferred to the Trump Presidential Library Foundation when he leaves office. The White House says legal details are still being worked out on the proposed deal. Qatar says no final deal has been reached. The president has fiercely criticized Qatar in the past.
The nation of Qatar, unfortunately, has historically been a funder of terrorism at a very high level.
The move is raising eyebrows from some.
They all have been, including the Saudis. If you go back into the 60s and the 70s, they was all squirming and worming towards wanting to become a power play, a superpower. And it was because of what we done, or once more, what we didn't do that we should have done, that has allowed for this to get out of hand the way that it has towards them becoming this powerful. And like I said a while ago, it's just a matter of time before people like Afghanistan, they're going to take all that equipment and they're going to dissect it and they're going to look at it and they're going to say, okay, this is the way the Americans do it. They do this, this, and this. Well, let's do the same thing. It's going to give ideals in their heads, and the next thing you know, they'll start building tanks. They'll start building airplanes. They'll start building stuff that will come back and bite us in the butts. I've never seen so many mistakes being made by our American government, and sometimes I tend to wonder the strategy play that they're using, if it's not done intentionally to go against the American way of life, pertaining to bringing this type of misery and sorrow into our lives. There's no way, if I was the president of the United States, there's no way that I would step foot on the Saudi territory knowing that those people had attacked me the way that they did pertaining to 9/11. In addition to what they've done to a journalist. In addition to how that they have manipulated the world, and now the world's basically eating out of their hand. Just like Obama going over there and kissing the king's ring over in Saudi Arabia, basically doing a curtsy. And I ain't never in my life heard of or thought that I would hear of an American president bowing to another king in another country. The only king that I've ever heard of that our presidents took a part of towards bowing to was King Jesus that hung on a cross. And whenever you start conforming into other practices or other traditions, then you're stepping over the line. The White House has a great deal to pay for pertaining to what that they have done in the past 30 plus years to the American people, much less the Christian American people. And like I said, whenever they made plans, I think it was in 93, of wanting to go to war with the Christian society all over the world towards them dominating society with their jihad or their Muslim religion based around the laws coming from Saudi Arabia. They hadn't forgot about all that stuff. Their intentions are still the same towards wanting to be the dominant force, towards overtaking the world, being the major power play of the world. They declared war on Israel in promising that they would eliminate them from the existences of the planet, and the next people that they would eliminate would be the American people because of our Christianity stance with the Lord Jesus Christ. Now, friends, whenever you have a group of people such as Donald Trump that identifies about the Abraham Accords, that even promoted, how come you haven't already done built the temple over there in Jerusalem, in the Holy Land? And whenever you see these things occurring, I don't know how other people are, but I tend to wonder just exactly whose side is our major players on that's supposed to be devoted to our American way of life. Maybe it is some sort of a reverse messed up psychology, but I guarantee you all this stuff that's going on is all part of the reflection of the resistance movement that began in the late 80s and the early 90s with the Reagans and the Bushes. It has put us in behind the 8 ball, and now we're having to basically take second fiddle to it. Good luck to all of us. God bless. God bless America. God bless our troops. God bless our endeavors towards which way we go from this moment on. And heaven, heaven, heaven. For God's sakes, Lord Jesus Christ, help us all. And amen.